The most overwhelming #1 difference between the most broken down runners versus the most injury-proof runners is the size of the hip flexor muscle, with elite level runners having up to 50% bigger hip flexors than the average runner. Just look at Usain Bolt as an example. Some of the most world-class hip flexors you'll ever see. 9.58 second 100-meter sprint, 8 Olympic gold medals, and some of the most protected and injury-proof hips while doing it. Meanwhile, most runners are just trying to run recreationally for fun and are unable to do so without getting hip flexor pain. So what we do know is that gaining strength here will reduce hip injuries by a ton. But now, let's look at how the greats actually apply that and build them up measurably. World-class hip flexor ability can be achieved by the time you get to targets, with our goal of 20 reps with 10% body weight loaded. My journey with hip flexors dates back years ago. I was constantly overusing them because they were weak, so when I ran, they would get chronically tight. It even got to the point where I tore the adductor in my left leg, all while being one of the slowest runners you'll ever see. And regardless of how much I failed, I kept thinking that being able to run better was just about pushing into the ground harder because you can produce more force. So I trained my glutes, I trained my hamstrings, and I trained my calves, yet I was still slow and still getting injured. And it was only when I was at my lowest and in the most pain that I stumbled across videos of the greats like Usain Bolt, Johan Blake, the fastest runners in the world. And yes, they were really good at pushing into the ground to be fast, but what they were equally good at is picking their leg back up after producing that force. And it was only after that realization that I started to actually make progress and become a better runner for the first time in my life, because you can get as strong as you want at pushing and going forwards. But if you can't handle that power, then you'll always get injured. And we now have a route to improve this ability measurably, because it scales down to anyone's level and can be done with no equipment if needed. In the first 8 weeks of Unlock, we're just focused on our body weight, being able to control just the weight of our leg through this fully contracted position like when we run. It scales by just leaning further forward as you want to make it harder. And if you need an easier entry level, you're getting quad cramping or anything like that, you can just lean further back to make it a lot easier. This will start to strengthen your hip flexors from home. And once you have this ability to comfortably pick up your leg, only then do you want to start building endurance. Because endurance, without this control first, just leads to poor running mechanics. Next, we move into rebuild, where we're gaining that endurance in our hip flexor, setting a 3-minute timer every Tuesday, aiming for 45 reps in those 3 minutes. And you know you're progressing well when you can do those 60 reps in 3 minutes with perfect form. That means back leg straight, lifting your knee above hip level on every rep. If you can't get your knee above hip level for those 60 reps, you need to decrease the weight. If you watch these clips of Usain Bolt, you'll notice he's using a cable. I never had access to a cable, I still don't. So what I do is instead, you can use ankle weights so you can measurably progress, or my favorite way is just to have an ankle strap like this. It attaches to a dumbbell, you can strap it onto your ankle, and it's super easy to progress. So all of that work so far that we built through Unlock to Rebuild sets us up perfectly for targets, where we have our Friday session where we focus purely on running stride mechanics, the muscles that actually move and pick up your leg. In that workout, you have 2 to 3 sets to build up to your best attempt at our target of 20 reps with 10% body weight loaded. Most people will not even be close to that 10% target in the beginning, but it's something that we can work towards long term. And since the running ability system is a complete package, not just a dialed in focus on one thing, we're also building up all the other sides of the hip along with our hip flexors, following our pigeon progression from tight and weak in Unlock to becoming long and strong by the time you get to targets, and turning your hamstrings from being liabilities when you run to becoming strong enough to tolerate any amount of running that you want to do. We all have the equal opportunity of being able to run our hearts out and have it not hurt us. But all of that pleasure is on the back end of putting in the work. And there aren't any runners in the world that can't make any progress on this, because everything in the running ability system scales down to your level that you can tolerate and make shifts, so you don't need equipment and you don't need a baseline of strength to make progress.